everyone, it's Dawn. Welcome back. I hope you've all had a good weekend. And today, as promised, we're going to start a little mini series on how to paint trees, or how I paint trees anyway, in watercolour. Every artist has their own way of painting trees, and this is my way. So I won't give you sizes, but I'll just give you the general principle. If you're going to paint a big tree, use a bigger brush. If you're going to paint a smaller tree, for example, either smaller in species or further back in distance, use a smaller brush. So I'm going to use a sort of medium brush, but I'm just going to do it on some white paper so that you can see the tree without any complicated backgrounds. So this we're going to do in one video. We're going to do a summer tree, an autumn tree and a winter tree, but there'll be no snow on the winter tree. Not in this one anyway, we'll do that another time, but for today we'll keep it relatively simple. So we're going on this piece of paper here, this is watercolour paper of course, we're going to start with a summer tree. So we're going to just wet our brush, dab it out, we don't want it too wet for this, let's just bring that in. And over here, we're going to start with a tree trunk, and we're going to pick up some brown. Now this is burnt umber here, with just a little bit of sap green, which was in that corner there, but seems to have run out. So we're just going to pick up a little bit of that. And with our brush, no pre-drawing on this one, we're going to go straight in. And we're going to paint our tree trunk. Just sweep up like that. Let the brush go almost into a dry brush technique and you get that lovely texture. So we're just going to sweep up like that for our trunk. And I am going to just grab a smaller brush and pick up, I will wet it a little. We'll pick up the same puddle of paint here. Just mix that up a bit. And we're going to pick up the same puddle of paint to coat the brush. We're not going to be too worried about this because we're going to put some foliage on it in a minute. And we're just going to paint in just one or two. Oops, we could do with a bit more. Let's just put a little bit more water. We'll grab a bit of that. We'll pinch some from the puddle next door. It's the same colour, it's just a bit darker. So that's all right. So we'll just put a few branches. As I say, we won't worry too much because we're going to cover this in leaves in a minute. So that's it. We don't need to do anything more specific than that because you're not going to see these branches in a minute. Now, a little tip. I would suggest, some people like to use a fan brush, some people hate the things. So for those who don't like fan brushes or haven't got one, we need to create texture on this tree. Now I'm going to use a flat brush. Now you can use an ordinary watercolour brush like that if you wish, but me being me, I never do anything the traditional way. I'm going to use a ochre brush, which traditionally is used for oils and apparently sometimes acrylics. So what I'm going to do with this, the trick with this is don't have the thing too wet, otherwise it'll just flood. So I'm just going to wash it out or dip it in the water to moisten it, and then I'm going to take out the excess on my kitchen towel. And over here on my palette, I've got a mix of yellow ochre and sap green, and I'm just going to mix that up like that. Nothing too complicated. We're just going to cover the tip of that brush, and the next bit's really easy. So what we're going to do, because it is bristle or stiff hair, it's a stiff haired brush, it'll create texture, and that's what we want for our foliage. So if you just dab like that, you're going to get that lovely texture when we create our canopy of leaves. We'll just pick up a little bit more. We're just going to create we want this really hit and miss technique, because then you're going to see the gaps between the leaves, which is what we're after. So we'll just pick up a little bit more and we'll go right up to the top. I should have made up a bit more green really, but never mind, we'll manage. And then just come down the tree, just so that it just covers the bottom of those branches. And you've got a really beautiful textured summer tree. So there is our summer tree. My goodness, that was easy, wasn't it? So we'll wash the brush out in a minute. Right, I'm just going to get all the debris out of the way. We're going to bring in another sheet of watercolour paper. Just make sure it's in the centre of the screen so you can see it. It is, that's always a good idea. And I'm going to take that out of there and just wipe it off on my kitchen towel, which I've got over here. I'm not going to put it too far because we're going to use it again in a minute. And I'm going to use the same brush, the same round brush that I used just now. And again, we're going to pick up, we're going to dip in actually between these two puddles. And again, we're going to do a tree trunk like that, just straight up to the top like that. If it dries out, that's fine. As we've said, it'll create that beautiful texture that we want on our trees. And then I'm just going to wash my brush out, pop that over there, pick up a smaller brush just to do the branches. Again, we won't worry too much with the branches because we're going to cover them in foliage. So we're just going to, again, just do 1 or 2 branches, nothing fancy, nothing complicated. So we'll just pick up a little bit more than that, I think. Just a little bit more, just a touch. We won't worry too much. So that'll do for that. I know it looks a bit rough and ready at the moment, but when we put our foliage on, that's when the magic happens. So again, I'm going to take my, well, I'm going to call it a texture brush, my hog hair brush. And again, I'm just going to put some water on it. And again, I'm going to dab it out just a little bit. And this time, this is the autumn tree. I've got a mixture of cadmium yellow and I have got burnt sienna. So I've got cadmium yellow and burnt sienna all mixed up. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit more. So just to show you how we mix it up, just like that. Very simple. I think we'll just take a little more burnt sienna. Oh, that's lovely. So a good dollop on the brush. And again, we're going to do exactly the same technique as we did for our summer tree. We are going to stipple, and I think we need a bit more, actually we need that to be a little bit drier. And I've decided we need a bit more burnt sienna. That could, and I'll even take a little bit of burnt umber, just a tiny weeny bit, because that can overpower really, really quickly. But it's got that lovely red in it. So again, that's better. So again, we're just going to tap with our texture brush so we get that lovely texture on our trees. And if you wanted smaller texture leaves, you could use the same, you could use a round brush, but also in hog hair or an acrylic brush if you want to. So just because we're painting in watercolour, we don't have to stick to watercolour brushes. So there's my tip of the day for you. So there we go, there's our beautiful textured autumn tree. That was easy and quick, wasn't it? And now to finish this little demonstration, I'm going to give that a good wipe because we don't need that anymore this time. Or actually, we might need that. We might need that again. I'm just going to take that away, bring this in, and we are going to do, you've guessed it, a winter tree. So this time, very similar technique, but not quite the same, just a little bit different. So we are going to take a darker mix this time. So we're going to pick up a little more burnt umber and put it into, pick up this bit here, bit of burnt umber just here. So we're going to have quite a dark tree. I might even take just a little bit of that burnt sienna and cadmium yellow mix so that it's not too dark, just to give it a bit of interest. So that'll be our nice dark. We need this quite rich and dark. Oh, that's beautiful. So we need that, another nice dark wonderful tree trunk right up to the top like that. But this time what we need a lot more twigs. But we're not going to sit here forever and ever painting them. No! What we're going to do, we are going to have another dry brush technique with our stippling brush or our texture brush. And this time, we're going to pick up a more burnt umber and just a tiny hint of burnt sienna, just to give it a bit of light so that it's not too dark. But we do want this fairly dark, but we don't want it black dark, if that makes any sense. So we want it to be dark, but we don't want it to be boring. Because what we're going to do now, instead of stippling the leaves, because this is a winter tree, we are going to stipple the twigs, the fine twigs. But we're not going to, as I say, we're not going to sit here for hours painting individual twigs. No. We're going to just very lightly dab, like this. So that creates the gorgeous twig effect. You could use a bigger brush if you wanted to. And then what we're going to do, we're going to do this first. So we've got our beautiful texture. This is just the background really. We'll come down to about there. We don't really need to go any further than that. And that is that for that brush this time. And we're going to take, whoops, that's all right. We're going to take another small round brush this time, traditional watercolour brush. And again, we're going to pick up some very dark burnt umber this time. Just burnt umber on its own, but I'm still going to put it into that same puddle there, into that same little puddle of paint there, but we're going to need quite a lot for this. Oh, pardon me. So, shouldn't have had me break before doing the video, but never mind, I do beg your pardon. So we'll carry on, coat that, and what we're going to do with this, we're going to paint into this, and we're going to paint those beautiful fine branches like that. And that will make sense of these twigs. So have them just fading out at the end. The broken lines are fine, that will add to that nice wintry feel. Just pick up a little bit more paint. So just make sure we cover that area so that these clumps of, well, they're not foliage, they're twigs, make sure that they're supported. So we need this fairly wet this time. We don't need it too thick, nice and wet, so that we get nice fluid lines like that. So we're just going to keep doing that into that area so that we've got a nice textured, very full, but still very easy winter tree. So we'll keep on doing that right up to the edge. I might just put a little bit more texture over the branches and the twigs with what's left. Let's just dry that out a bit more actually, because we don't want that wet. These texture brushes, these hog hair brushes, if you are going to use these, you really don't want those too wet because they will just make a puddle. So I'm just going to do that. Pick up some more or less neat. This is neat burnt umber. So I'm not going to do very much more. We're nearly done for this video. And all I'm going to do is very lightly stipple back over those branches, and it will push them into the centre of the tree so that they really don't look like they're painted on top. So there we go. There is our nice textured winter tree. And I am not going to take it any further than that. Although it's great fun to do that, I'm going to leave it like that. So there is our winter tree. And then we had our autumn tree, which is already dried. And I suspect that our summer tree has died as well, or dried, not died, hopefully it hasn't. So let's pop that up there. There, I think we can just about, if I sort of overlay that, you can get all three in one go, just about. So here is our summer tree, our autumn tree, and our winter tree. So again, we've got no snow. If you did want to add snow to this, just a quick tip, just grab your same texture brush and use a bit of white acrylic. There's nothing wrong, despite what other people tell you, there's nothing wrong with using acrylic on a watercolour. You just use almost neat white and stipple and you'll have a beautiful snow-covered tree. But we'll cover that in another demonstration. So I hope you've enjoyed that and found it useful. And if you're enjoying these videos, especially these tree videos, I know they're quite popular, or tree painting and demonstrations are quite popular, so we'll be doing more on Thursday. So if you haven't already, so that you don't miss this series, please do hit the like button, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell and you'll never miss another upload. And I will be back on Thursday and we will start to get into some specific trees. And on Thursday we'll be doing a poplar tree and a very popular weeping willow tree. So there we go. If you want to know how to paint, or how I paint a poplar tree and a weeping willow tree, pop back on Thursday. Make sure you're subscribed and then you'll know when the video is up. And I shall see you on Thursday. So enjoy the rest of the week, have fun, stay safe everybody, and as always, happy painting. Bye bye for now.